Keys for Mastery. Maps for Multidimensional Higher Consciousness by James Akintonde. Dedicated to family on both sides of the veil, on both sides of the game. Introduction. Knock, knock, said the quiet yet distinct voice in my inner right ear as I arose from slumber one morning alone in my room. Other than the new meditation I had been working with the past few days, nothing else was new. If this had happened a few years before, I would have most definitely been more than a little distraught. However, in light of recent developments, I know exactly who or what it was. I waited and nothing more was said, so I got up and went about my day with a business as usual attitude. A few months earlier, after going through my usual routine of techniques and attaining the requisite state of body asleep, mind awake required for soul travel, as soon as the higher dimensional vibrations began and launched me into my soul body into hyperspace, I did something I had never done before, but had always planned on doing eventually. I requested of my then unknown spirit guides to take me to my higher self. I could not see or feel them as I later would be able to, but I assumed they existed, though was quite doubtful as they had never approached me or made their presence known to me in many, many years of soul travel experience. I have long since realized the reason why, which is that I just was not ready, although I would have strongly disagreed at the time. With an incredible rush of energy, whoosh, I was off, zooming through hyperspace at warp speeds. Then I began to ascend in a spiraling motion, even though there really was no perceptible up or down. Then I heard it, what I had read about but never encountered in all my previous experiences, the music of the spheres, an enchanting melody of tones and overtones, most pleasing to the ear. Then I was collapsed from the wave function of energy into the particle function of form and found myself in a bizarre landscape facing someone who was regarding me with the most curious and most penetrating gaze, as if all of me was laid bare to his gaze. I instantly suspected who it might be, but did not have the presence of mind to ask. I began to mumble some inanities, and he said, "Don't talk so much." I tried to focus my gaze to get a better view, but I was unprepared and quite stunned by the encounter that I completely forgot the art of stalking, much less any of my stalking techniques. Next thing I knew, I was pulled back almost instantly into the physical. I could still feel the interdimensional vibrations coursing through me, so I did what I knew to intensify them, then and repeated the request as I was launched into hyperspace. Went through an almost exact sequence and found myself once again facing the same person. This time I was a little more prepared, but still quite discombobulated by finally making contact. I did not know what to say. Once more I babbled some inanities and some inconsequential comments about the landscape, completely forgetting the art of stalking again, and in short order I was pulled back once again into physicality. So when I hear the voice saying, "Knock, knock," I knew who it was. A few more uneventful months went by where I was preoccupied with physical world concerns and not able to do the meditations that put me in the resonance for soul travel. Eventually, I was able to generate the interdimensional vibration state one morning and repeated the request once launched into hyperspace in my soul body. This time I felt several pairs of hands on me, and I assumed these were my guides. As we collapsed from non-local hyperspace into localized time-space, I found myself walking in my soul body with two men on either side of me toward a small house. Inside, they proceeded to get comfortable, and I just stood there staring at them, intent on remembering my stalking technique so I could prolong the projection. They spoke to each other in some language I could not understand, probably saying something like, "Look at him just standing there, dumbfounded, watching us." Then one of them said something in English, and I was so excited, I said, "Oh, great, you speak English." Then once again, as is my modus operandi, I started to babble on and on about how I had been seeking spiritual completion for so many years, and I wanted to know what our connection was. Then one of them, the one who had been regarding me with a soul-piercing gaze that was at the same time loving and caring, calming and serene, said with a huge grin on his face, "I am your twin." One of the most challenging aspects of the production of this body of work was in figuring out the order of the material in such a way that facilitated understanding, regardless of one's level of familiarity with the concepts. On the heels of that was how to explain multidimensional concepts and understandings gleaned over time using the limiting construct we call language without losing too much understanding and meaning. For these will always be levels of understanding. There will always be levels of understanding that defy containment through language and can only be experienced. Beyond that was the challenge of producing the work in an easy enough to read format that will aid the novice's degree of understanding by discussing scientific or metaphysical concepts without resorting to terminology that would only turn what would otherwise be a challenge into a difficulty, yet not compromising the integrity of the information for the seasoned reader. Perhaps one of the most difficult parts of any journey of awakening is the beginning, the initial realization, the igniting of the flame, the desire to understand the self and one's place in the infinite vastness that is existence. The awakening births the search, but because we are so conditioned to seek answers outside ourselves, the initial search often heads in the opposite direction of where the answers lie. In our externally, materially oriented society, we have devalued the importance of the inner and have lost contact with its guidance and its gifts. One wonders why there is so much misery, discontent, and disconnection amongst humanity. We have been conditioned to seek without what can only be found within. The frustration at lack of any real progress upon such an externally focused path can cause many to abandon the search for a while, if not permanently. They assume they were wrong and there really isn't anything to be found, without realizing that they didn't find anything, not because there wasn't anything to be found, but because they were looking in the wrong direction. What complicates the search is that it is like a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle without the cover to show you what the end result looks like, so you have no choice but to painstakingly piece it together, one piece at a time, with the hopes that eventually something comes together. The object of this work is to provide as many pivotal pieces as I have discovered to date to assist in this process. I am still very much on the path and will always be, so my knowledge is increasing daily and my ignorance in proportion. It has been said that one's ignorance increases in direct proportion to one's knowledge, and I have found that to be true. When one knows little, one thinks one knows all that is important to know. One is quite unaware of the magnitude of that which one does not know. As one's knowledge grows, so does the realization and appreciation for the magnitude of that which one does not know. Yet the truth remains the truth, regardless of one's degree of comprehension, acceptance, or denial of it. The secrets to dominion over the external world and external conditions have always and will always lie within. Ignorance is the warden that defies the boundaries of humanity's prison, and knowledge of truth is the key to freedom. My target audience for the trilogy are fellow seekers on the path who have experienced at the very least a modicum of awakening, already realizing there are more to things than meets the eye. That the world we are sold from birth is not even close in accuracy to the way things really are. These are the ones seeking keys to unlocking deeper degrees of understanding and the magic within themselves that is there right as a divine aspect of the one creator. It is my greatest desire that this body of work serves as a catalyst of clarity, understanding, and direction for others along their path of mastery. For those well seasoned in these concepts, in humility, there may still be much needed insight and clues to be discovered. Sometimes all one is waiting for are just a few more pieces of the puzzle in order to see the bigger picture and put it all together. This body of work chronicles a personal journey of awakening and an understanding along the path of mastery. From knowledge and wisdom gathered through soul travel experiences about the nature of reality and the self, to meditative and non-meditative gestalts of awareness. This is when you suddenly know something beyond all shadow of a doubt. Without knowing how you came to it, you just stepped into knowing after a period of contemplation. There is a tremendous amount of invaluable information put forth in this work, and in this regard, I must say I stand in the shoulders of giants, because the works of others have helped me greatly in my own work and personal journey, and the works quoted in these pages are bits and pieces of great import to the topic at hand, but a thorough reading of all the works referenced is highly encouraged. This book is the first of a trilogy. It is geared to assist the reader in overcoming the obstacles that stand in the way of having a living, face-to-face relationship with one's divine complement and team of spiritual guides. The second book will be about the possibilities that such a relationship opens up and the preparations required for the eventual merger with one's divine complement or higher self. The third book will deal with the actual mechanics of the merger and life beyond that. There are many ways to skin a cat, it has been said. I provide many avenues to the same goal because we are all individuals and therefore we will resonate to some avenues more than others. That is just human nature. It is my desire that the novice reader realize this and not become overwhelmed at the sheer magnitude of this work that is being proposed here. Please realize that this is a lifetime's work and you do not have to do everything proposed, just enough to tip the scales to allow you to make contact with your own team of guides who are eagerly waiting to begin working with you to help you become and embody the totality of the magnificent, multidimensional being that you really are. Due to the multidimensional nature of the control system on this planet, while there are definitely forces of light assisting and communicating, there are also forces of darkness doing the same, and with our limited range of perception, it is not always easy to tell the difference at first glance. It really isn't. It is egotistical and naive of someone to think that they can, because underestimating your opponent does not change their capacity. All it does is render you complacent and more vulnerable to defeat. This is why it is so important to be discerning about all you are exposed to, and your focus should be doing what it takes to connect to the higher dimensional aspect of yourself. This has to be more important than some extraterrestrial or ascended master or whatever that you have no such intimate connection with. Keeping it in perspective, realizing that ultimately the only one you can trust in your limited perspective state is you. The rest of you, the higher aspects of you who have the same agenda of completion as you do. No one else should be above this, hence the reason why that is the focus of this body of work. I see so many books from so many sources proclaiming to be here to help mankind. Yet none of them say anything about connecting you to your own multidimensional team. Oh, many will tell you about them, but they always make it seem as if you cannot have a direct relationship with them, and it has to just be reduced to vague meditations. They never seem to be interested in helping you develop the faculties that will allow you to play on their level, and you have to wonder why. Because when you can play on their level, it's not so easy to fool you anymore, and you can see things for what they are. Though each must create their own path in their life's work, kind of like a living 3D tapestry one works on daily, there are commonalities. Therefore, We can learn a great deal from others' experiences and unique perspectives. When you know what works, you can save yourself a lot of time and energy that would have been spent running to and fro, searching, and the necessary trial and error, dead ends and blind alleys that seem to be unavoidable aspects of the process. Time and energy better spent on the process itself, which one will truly appreciate one day when one understands the complexities and magnitude of the great work. In the production of this work and the process of finding the right mindset to work from, I realized the most ideal mindset is that of the highest truth as I have come to understand it at this point in time. I realized I want to present this work through the mindset of speaking to another me, attempting to help them remember what had been forgotten and give them an idea of what lies ahead. As in truth and in reality, we are all unique expressions of the same source. I have been greatly assisted by the work of others, so I was quite empathetic to the plight of the seeker and the challenge of sorting through the massive amounts of information and disinformation one invariably comes across, not to mention the massive amounts of time and energy one can waste in following dead ends, which is the goal of most disinformation, to confuse, confound you, and cause you to waste tremendous amounts of time in relatively useless directions and to never know it. So you end up spending your whole life seeking and never finding. So to that end, I had to come to a place of just deciding to put it all out there as I know it to be without sugarcoating any of it and allow the reader to make of it what they will. It is definitely not a work for the faint of heart or those heavily indoctrinated in any of the world's religions or those with rigid belief systems, although all are welcome, of course. I know quite well the feeling of frustration and despondency that occurs at a certain point of the path of awakening where you have gathered a tremendous amount of information and done an immense amount of work, yet you feel more confused than before you began, as if all you had done has only served to take you 3 steps forward and 4 steps back. You almost begin to long for the bliss from ignorance you enjoyed before your search began. Almost. It is my goal that this work will assist others to cut a path through the maze of confusion, greatly accelerating the time it will take to reach the goal. Once you know what the goal is, disinformation is not always about outright lies. It is mostly in the omission of pertinent information while giving you the impression you have all you need to know. So you seek no further. It is like attempting to bake a cake without all the ingredients. In all of existence, in truth, there is only one being expressing itself as the multitudes that we see. Therefore, what you do for another, you do for yourself. And what you fail to do for another, you fail to do for yourself. The further one moves upon the journey of awakening, the more this perspective begins to become a reality. And that is the mindset with which this work is produced. The journey of awakening truly begins to accelerate upon one condition only, in my experience. And that condition can become a reality sooner or much later, or never, depending on one's degree of awareness of its possibility and significance. That condition is a living, breathing relationship with one's twin flame, divine complement, spirit monad, higher dimensional self, multidimensional self. There are many names for this aspect of self, but it is the real you on the other side of the veil of forgetfulness. This relationship with which leads to an eventual merger, which is called by many unity consciousness, is the completion of awakening and is facilitated by a pair of guides. They are all in non-physical realms, awaiting recognition of their existence by the incarnate aspect of themselves. One could spend many lifetimes sincerely seeking spiritual growth and never be exposed to their existence. In fact, most people do. However, such seeking is like driving a car blindfolded. You don't get very far. The goal of this work is to help you create an acceleration in your growth if you so wish. By sharing my personal process of connecting with my divine complement and spiritual guides and the non-physical platforms that will allow for this to happen. They will not manifest in front of you in the physical or in a meditative state as a means of initiating contact at this point. While meditative states can help to begin communication, they will not give you the living, breathing relationship that is necessary. You must learn to transcend the physical and meet with them on their playground, on their level. This process causes you to move beyond many erroneous belief systems about the nature of reality and the nature of the self that is a prerequisite to such engagement, and there are many ways to do this. I would recommend reading this work in progression if you are new to these concepts, because the earlier chapters lay the groundwork for the later chapters. However, if you are well-versed on these issues, then you may skip around as you wish. Information does not automatically become knowledge. Information applied and understood can only lead to knowledge. Knowledge does not automatically become wisdom. Knowledge lived leads to wisdom, which will eventually lead you to a level of knowing. Things known never need be explained. Once you truly know, you no longer need to be convinced. In the knowing, you realize that no one could have ever convinced you previously, and that you cannot convince another. They must come to their own level of knowing, in their own time, at their own cadence. Until then, they may peruse information, but the layers of meaning contained therein in a multidimensional manner would completely escape them. It appears that only when a sufficient degree of awakening is already present, that the information is able to pierce the veil of forgetfulness. Only when one is already intuitively connected to one's truth that one has the tools of inner intuitive verification. Then the words seem to explain what one realizes one already knows intuitively. Life is a process of unfolding that which already is. What on the surface may seem like a failed experiment truly only points the way to success. By identifying what does not work, you are that much closer to discovering what does. In this perspective, there really can be no such thing as failure. All experiences are truly opportunities for learning. Feel the truth in between the lines. Accept what resonates with you and leave what doesn't, while keeping an open mind that what does not make much sense at one level of awakening and at one point in time can make absolute sense at another point in time when one is at a higher degree of awakening. Skepticism is most welcome, for it is a mindset of not knowing, not being sure, yet willing to remain open while evaluating the information. This allows for learning and understanding. Cynicism, on the other hand, is a mindset that is already made up against the information before even being exposed to it, thereby closing off any hope of true communication and understanding. As in all things, follow your heart to your truth, not mine, because there is not just one truth, there are many, and the truth changes depending upon your point of perception and level of perception. Listen with the ears of the heart. See with its eyes, and you will come to know and trust its divine intelligence. Not all truths are absolute. Truth can be relative, changing depending upon one's degree of awareness and awakening. The more multidimensional a view one has, the more accurate one becomes in one's perception of truth. This body of work shall endeavor to shine a light in many different directions that may seem unrelated at first, but fit together incredibly intricately, like a magnificent tapestry. Once the bigger picture can be glimpsed, light banishes darkness, and light holds information as information holds light. The greatest gift you can give someone who has lost their way is a roadmap. The greatest gift you can give someone who has forgotten who they are is the remembrance of themselves. When you truly realize that you and the perceived other are one and the same in essence, the greatest gift you can give to them also becomes the greatest gift you can give to yourself, to all my relations in love and service.